Greetings, stranger, and welcome to Ghastly Tales. Here you will find stories to chill your bones, stop your heart, and tear at your very soul. Now, pull up close to the fire and listen closely, for the moon is full and the luminescent algae abloom in the depths. Listen to the tale of our brothers in the abyss. This is the Accursed Lineage by Vlek. December 21st. The last of the insufferable students have finally vanished from these darkening marble hallways. Silent now are the harsh and obnoxious howlings they call laughter. Gone are their priggish musings, and presumptions of grace and grandeur that trumpet and echo between stacks of books, and curiosities best left to moulder into antiquity in peace. Mercifully absent are the noxious fumes of their half-rotted feastings that linger long after they have ceased to feed, and which cause the bile to rise within the clear, strong gullets of good, wholesome folk. If I can tolerate but another 2 days, their professors will be gone. These are no better than the young among them. The august airs they cloak themselves within, like virulent cocoons, in order to maintain the illusion of superiority over the pitiful whelps they would instruct in their abominable ways, are at times too much to bear. Soon these baneful beings will all have evaporated into the chilling mists, to salute one another and welcome their fellows to holiday hearth and home, far away from these sanctified halls. This festive occasion is known among these odious creatures as Christmas, and apparently includes a whole compendium of distasteful rituals and more, needless to say, more and more feasting. Then, sweet holiday of mine own, peace and quiet I shall don as a noble shroud, to continue my study of things arcane and of lasting import. For it is matters old beyond time, when man was but a myth among us, that bear upon the truths I seek. Such pointed and precarious wisdom might only be found here, at Miskatonic University, in the library where ancient volumes and time-worn journals of obscure authority are housed in abundance upon its shelves and stored beyond memory in the catacombs below. You might wonder at the unapologetic distaste with which I write of these others, these human creatures with whom I am forced to enter into a highly disagreeable sort of cohabitation. But it is necessary in order to complete certain critical tasks. It is with great pride, however, and I bristle that one might presume otherwise, that I banish all conjecture that I might myself be human. I shudder as I ponder the curse of such an affliction, and the very great blessing by which that terrible fate has passed me by. I am what these lesser mortals of Miskatonic University and beyond call, for some inexplicable reason, a deep one. I resemble their insipid features and garrulous ways but slightly. True, like them I descend from a bipedal species, but I am of far, far older and nobler stock than they, and am at home equally on dry land and among the fathomless black wastes of my precious primeval sea. My maternal line has at times shared blood, in so many ways, with the descendants of no less a being than Pickman himself, while notable and accomplished ghouls of numerous royal and military lines have married into our family to mutual and lasting benefit. Physically, the human creature possesses but a modest flapping aperture with which to issue their insipid and off-key chitterings, and to feed on their bilious comestibles. My handsome mouth, a proud batrachian portal, is remarkably equipped both to issue a broad and lively array of complex and pleasing tones and sweet locution, and may emit such sendings across vast expanses not only of space, but time as well. So you see, it is we who are the superior ones, even as we must hide from our inferiors and scurry from their invasive scrutinies. Such is the noble truth. More later, that portly, balding creature known as Euphrates, or some such blather, has just appeared to mop the floors in the library and empty it of waste in the form of wadded husks of paper carelessly covered with inarticulate scribblings. I must scuttle away now, to the confines of my subterranean refuge, until the loathsome one departs, and I may safely return to my work. December 25th. At last, I am utterly alone. The silence is complete, and the snow drifts deep upon the little town. No cars, no bustling noisiness wafting from the streets, just an absence of anything which might intrude upon my all-important work. But I must confess, it is not only the pasty human things and their gibbering larvae that I must wholly avoid at my peril. I must also evade the prying impatience of my own fellows looking too closely over my shoulder at the discoveries I have so far unearthed in this disturbingly fecund tableau. There have long been stories, nothing more than hideous rumors at first, and then, sadly, verified by the irrefutable proof of material artifacts, on occasion living material artifacts. How it first came to pass is unknown. There is of course no reliable report among either of our peoples, and conjecture is far too varied and frankly preposterous to set down any clear historical record. Let it be said that at some point in time, certain rather degenerate and sickly branches of both the human species and our own had found themselves inclined to saw fit, without rhyme or reason, without benefit of sound counsel, without sense or sensibility, to mate among themselves, and to promote their progeny to free-ranging adulthood. Now, some of these material artifacts, some of these individuals of commingled and accursed lineage were remarkably handsome of feature and comely of face and grace, and altogether a wonder to behold. There can be no denying the facts, plain and unrepentant for all to witness. It was rather the possibility of cohabiting each strain with the other that many on both sides found particularly distasteful. Deep ones have long been shunned by humankind, and we were happy to live off among ourselves. For our part, we find humans weak. They suffer certain insurmountable limitations of constitution and biology that would severely curtail any useful or agreeable camaraderie that might otherwise arise from living openly in close proximity. As such, we shunned and avoided contact with their species. Most of us did, at any rate. I tire now, and must leave in search of sustenance. It is past midnight, and the luminescent algae and floral fungi of which I am so fond this time of year are now fully abloom in the moonlight among the shallows. More tomorrow, when I am again rested and replenished. December 26th. Through a close perusal of certain documents found in the library, as well as digging through mounds of ancient journals and personal letters, many of which crumbled and disintegrated in my hands as I read them, I pieced together the identities of the families on both sides in question. It seemed, unfathomably, that this had not been merely a few ill-considered dalliances and regrettable pairings, but had endured through certain families as a sort of jealously guarded and desirable practice for hundreds of years. I gasped in utter horror when I took full measure of the hideous implications. The inhabitants of both land and sea along the whole of the New England seaboard were now almost certainly indistinguishable, one from the other except in the basest of appearances. Not a family was spared this commingling, and none of our amphibious lines remained untainted from these questionable alliances. In fact, individuals in both our lines had conspired to keep this great spreading of the genes concealed from the rest of us. The fact we lived apart, as distinct peoples at this juncture, seemed utterly ludicrous and without meaning. And yet, how would this knowledge be brought to bear upon the general and collective public attention of our conjoined peoples? And to what end? A strange new beginning, or a tragic and violent end for us all? My own superiors, who had set me to this task, were closing in. They demanded answers. They wanted assurances that the few isolated cases that we already knew about had died out long ago. They planned to undertake certain measures to ensure that if such mixed lines endured contemporaneously, that they be allowed, indeed be strongly encouraged, to die out naturally. Whatever that might have meant, I shuddered at the thought, and prayed I did not discover my own noble family among those telling annals of private record. How could I possibly convey to them the broader meaning of my current discoveries? So far, I had kept my fellows at bay, stalling where I could and taking full advantage of the empty halls of the festive season to pursue my work at a highly elevated pace. So far, they had accepted my unrelenting insistence upon waiting until my findings were complete, and I could make my recommendations based on a thoughtful consideration of all the available materials, and not pick piecemeal through incomplete terrains now wholly obscured by the impenetrable mists of time. December 27th. I have thoroughly exhausted the last of the available documents. In the last days I have penetrated far beyond the walls of the sub-basement, into long unused halls and locked forgotten rooms, thick with dust and mold. Certain abandoned laboratories filled with archaic equipment and heaps of wrecked and mangled gurneys caught my eye, but promised no assistance in my current campaign, so I passed them by. The work had progressed at a slow pace because of the condition of the papers and journals germane to my inquiries, many of them mere stacks of dust held together with cobwebs and the casings of long-dead larvae of numerous types. Despite these challenges and limitations, I have prevailed and come to a clear comprehension of the extent of the intermingling of our peoples as iterated and outlined above. On the hardened clay floor of the final room, however, at the end of the last long, boarded-up hallway, there was a large, threadbare rug of what they call the Persian design, itself thick with dust and the droppings of wool moths and their dried carcasses. Why, I wondered, had they placed a rug down here? Particularly when such rugs as this seem so highly valued and jealously displayed among humankind of a certain crust and class. The mystery continued to plague me as I rummaged about the mostly worthless contents of what seemed nothing more than a storeroom of the last or even earlier century. Something piqued at the corners of my mind, and caused a warm sweat to ooze from the dorsal gills I generally keep hidden beneath my collar when venturing out in my greatcoat and fedora among the last men wandering the fog-laced evening streets. When I had finished with the decayed and musty room, I glanced once more at the rug. Then I ripped it back and dragged it into a corner, causing a huge cloud of dust and other detritus to fill the room. When all had settled, I saw that my foreshadowing had been correct. I was rewarded for my efforts with the sight of a ponderous iron grate, 3-foot square set with a massive ring and the grime of centuries. I will investigate thoroughly and at leisure on the morrow. For now, the sweet moon calls to me with her warning impatience. I am possessed of a ravenous hunger, and the tides are right for a swim. For I am now feeling, for some reason, unclean. December 28th. This morning I proceeded directly and without delay to the room at the end of the hall in the sub-basement. All was as I had left it, and the massive iron grate remained securely in place as if patiently awaiting my return. I stared at it for a few moments, marveling at the possible purpose of the grate and its obvious obscuration. I was strangely hesitant, in awe even, of the extreme age of the thing. I shook my head and set to work. The grate was monstrously heavy and all but grown secure in place, and would have proven impossible for a dozen men to have dislodged it. But then, I am so much more than a dozen men, and within a few seconds I had pulled the thing free of the cavernous maw that held it in its dark embrace and shoved it aside and out of my way. I stared into the gaping black chasm for just a moment, before nimbly picking my way down a set of stone stairs edged with a rotting wooden railing. Counting as I went, I traversed 500 steps and some few more in number, and lost all presumption that this place had anything whatsoever to do with Miskatonic University and its infancy in time and among things of questionable making. A notion briefly touched my mind, then darted swiftly into the shadows. I both deeply regretted and was profoundly joyful that my companions had no knowledge of this place, into which I now ventured alone. I came at last to a smooth rock floor, not fashioned by any hand but the ancient creative forces of the earth's beginnings. I counted another 50 paces before I came to what looked like an ancient well. Walking around to the other side, I saw that it was not a well at all, but another staircase leading down into what unknown depths I could not imagine. It was also getting much warmer, which of course was a pleasant respite from the winter's cold of a snowy northeast. 200 steps more brought me to solid earth, soft and loamy as my shoes sunk in several inches before coming to ground. I removed my shoes and socks, meaningless affectations used only for the sake of whatever humans I might encounter on my rounds. I wiggled my thickly webbed toes in the warm, moist soil and sighed a breath of deep relaxation. A faint, smoky glow began filling the chamber. Either my eyes had grown accustomed to the greater dark, or the glow itself bloomed and crescendoed before me to greet my gaze. A moment later, I beheld the source of the glow, and my breath caught in my chest as within an iron fist. Never on land nor sea had I encountered anything like it. As my mind stilled enough to take in the scene more fully, I recalled that I had indeed seen something reminiscent to what lay before me, in the deepest part of the sea near the great coral reefs. It appeared to be a vast undulating bed of pale air-breathing anemone covering the floor of a chamber the size of the library, and it struck me that this chamber provided the deepest foundation of the library and of Miskatonic University itself. Here were hundreds, thousands, of soft, fleshy chimneys, each at least 2 feet high and crowned with a thick nest of gently floating tendrils. They were all of a range in shades, from the ruddy pink of a corpulent man to the pale opalescence of a slug's trail. The tendrils fanned together gently, as if of a mind, and beneath deep still waters, but there was no water here. They flickered and shone with scintillating illumination as if before a full unclouded moon, but no celestial light could penetrate so deeply in the dark black body of the earth. I breathed in the warm, heady fragrances they emitted, and then lay down upon the earth to regain my strength for a moment for the long climb back to the surface. Then I knew no more, until I awoke in the library, slumped over a long wooden table covered with my books and papers. December 31st. The last 2 days were spent exploring the lovely diaphanous creatures dwelling in the cavernous chamber far beneath the sub-basement. They are so remarkably beautiful. They thrive in their subterranean enclave, and most tantalizing of all, they are sentient, most exquisitely sentient. They have graciously accepted me among them to complete my research, as long as I do them no harm, but how could I? Last night I finally had to meet with my Batrachian companions in a nearby deserted alley. They had been trying to find me for days, they said, complaining that the time had come for me to produce my findings and return with them to the sea. I had heard them, of course, calling to me within the soft folds of my innermost private thoughts, threatening to uncover the monumental secrets I so jealously guarded. Last night I knew I could hold them off no longer. They immediately demanded to know why I covered myself against them, beneath my greatcoat and fedora as I did when I passed among the humans. Force of habit, I told them. Of course I had been so long away from the sea, except for short sporadic dips, that I had grown shy and wary of my appearance. They mumbled and grunted among themselves, as they do, glancing at me curiously, their broad down-turned grimaces falling upon me in disapproval as the unmistakable blush of anger soured their normally robust greenish countenance. But soon they left, appeased for the moment with declarations that I would soon complete my work, and rejoin them with my findings fully prepared for general release. January 1st. Somewhere outside, the humans are celebrating yet another holiday. Well and good, I say, as long as it keeps them far away and leaves me in peace. But then, how on earth or under it could they ever find me here? I have tidied all I touched among them upstairs, and refiled every letter, shelved every book and journal, jogged tight the corners of every stack of paper I handled with my gloved appendages. Never would they suspect I have been moving so freely among their precious artifacts, of our nefarious shared history. I laugh as I sit here in the deepest chamber beneath the sub-basement, among the singing ones. Yes, they have begun to sing. Or perhaps I have only now grown worthy of discerning their tenebrous tones from my own disordered interior musings. The vibrating luminescent glow of their inner light has become fully audible to my ears. Such songs they sing to each other, and to me. I tremble with pleasure as their lush, undulating fronds, now grown to fantastical lengths and thickness, brush my face and limbs and probe the softer flesh of my body, encouraging me, tempting me to do what I dare not yet contemplate. As I drift off to sleep among them, I behold that the entire chamber is filled with the delicate waverings of countless fluttering protrusions. Oh, how wondrous they are. January 3rd. I marvel at the transcendental mystery of my captor beloveds. I marvel in shame at my presumption to understand what the gods have in store for us all, great old ones and new usurpers alike. I laugh aloud, but my mouth is filled with them as they caress me inside and out. I am completely naked now, as I should be. The garments worn to protect me from prying human eyes now cast aside so the delicate fronds may caress me fully, without hindrance or veil. I will continue to write in this journal only so long as the fetid fragments of ignorance belligerently maintain hope or fear within me of what or who may come here. My mind is violently assaulted as I am dragged forth from such unutterably sweet bliss. I roar an oath to destroy the stars in the firmament themselves if I am not unhanded at once. My arms are rudely grabbed and bruised by rough, unforgiving hands, and my feet are ripped cruelly from the dark, soft earth where they have taken deep root. I glance at my body and gasp with pleasure. I am all white now, and aglow. My smooth, delicate flesh opalescent and shimmery pale. The looks on the faces of those who have come here, human faces and batrachian faces, is revulsion. Human and batrachian arms and strong hands work together frantically to pull me free of the embrace that holds me in thrall. Their mutterings and cries, their howls of rage and fear mean nothing and is met only with my laughter. Their eyes turn upon me in disgust and horror as they drag me from this place. They would flee if they could, but they are committed to the task of unearthing me. My eyes burn back into their own as I demand they behold me fully, and marvel as I writhe in their midst in ecstasy and pride, longing to burst forth into a cacophony of delicate, wavering fronds. My work is at last complete. My work just now begins. This has been a Ghastly Tales production. Narration by Martin Yates, story by Aaron Vlek. First published in the anthology Miskatonic Dreams, September 2016, edited by H. David Blaylock. Accompanying music by Kevin MacLeod, with additional music by Michael Whitehouse. For full credits, please see the description. I hope you've enjoyed this reading. If you have, please subscribe to Ghastly Tales on YouTube and stalk Ghastly Tales Presents on Facebook for more horror narrations, short films, true horrors, dark documentaries, and more. And for chills on the go, remember that our narrations are also available on iTunes, Libsyn, and all good podcasting apps. Good night, listener, and sweet dreams.